All right, so in today's video, I'm going to talk about what resentment is, why it's so damaging to a relationship. I'm going to share 2 pitfalls that you really want to be on the lookout for. And more importantly, I'm going to give you 3 tools that will help you dissolve that resentment in your relationship so you can find more peace. Now, before we get going, make sure you hit that notification bell and subscribe to my channel so you can be first in line when my next video on relationship mastery drops. For those of you that are new here, welcome, and for returning visitors, thank you for coming back. My name is Elizabeth Ritchie. I'm a registered clinical counselor and certified life coach, and for many years I've worked with individuals and couples, helping them to create more fulfilled and joyous lives. Okay, let's talk about what resentment is so you can see if it's at play in your relationship and make sure it doesn't work to torpedo it. Now, what is the definition of resentment? Bitterness and indignation at having been feeling like you've been treated unfairly. So you feel like you've been treated in a disrespectful or an unfair manner. So an example of that might be Allie, we'll just name a woman, Allie was resentful because her husband was going golfing every weekend instead of spending time with the family. Another way to think about resentment is as layers. So resentment's a little bit of a complex thing, and sometimes it's hard to know it's there. It comes out in different ways. So I like to think that it's kind of like if you picture a cross-section of a sort of piece of land, and it has all the different layers, the stratas. So you'd have the grass on top, and then you might have sand, and then you might have rock. It goes down in layers. So with resentment, or envision it as there's irritation first, and then there is resentment. And if it's left unchecked, resentment can then grow to be anger. And if anger is left unchecked, it can grow to be rage. So you can see there's different layers there. And so what may start out as something small, like your husband or your partner or your wife just irritating you, can actually grow, if it's not dealt with, into resentment. And then resentment can grow into anger. So you get the drift. All right, so how do you know if you're dealing with resentment in your relationship? So that could be resentment on your part, or you could be sensing that your partner is feeling resentful, but you're not quite sure. Well, some of the things that may be coming up that are a hint that resentment may be present are things like passive-aggressive behavior, giving someone the silent treatment, or we call stonewalling, shutting down, not talking. It could be less sex, less intimacy. It could be feelings of disappointment. It could be, an increase in sarcasm. Some of those things are indicators that resentment is probably at play in your relationship. So what can you do about it? Well, what you can do about it is you can use it as a warning sign, as a red flag of sorts. So you can use it as a indicator that something's off in your relationship, something's not right. And now you know that something's off, so you have to look at yourself and you have to consider what issues maybe are coming up for you and your partner. And you have to think about it, like what have we been doing about it? Have we been handling these issues in a constructive, positive way? Or are we handling these issues in a destructive, sort of negative way, or not a healthy way? And so, for instance, if you're dealing with it constructively, then you probably are doing things like sitting down and trying to communicate your concerns about an issue, or to convey that you're feeling hurt or treated unfairly in some way. You're trying to share that with your partner so they can understand where you're coming from. And then that way you can move forward because you can understand each other and make things better. So that would be a constructive way. But a destructive way is some of those things that I listed earlier, like passive-aggressive behavior, silent treatment, sarcasm, those kind of things. Those are drawing away, right? So that's dealing with it in a destructive way, because the more you deal with it that way, the further and further it's going to push your relationship apart. And so, addressing those issues and talking about them is a first step for sure. When you fail to talk about the deep issues or the difficult things in your relationship, it not only damages your relationship, but it actually can damage, of course, your emotional health, but your physical health as well. Because resentment is it's a bit of a silent killer. It's a bit of a cancer in that you are keeping everything in, and the resentment's growing and you're not doing anything about it. And eventually something's going to give. And in some cases, it's your physical health. So it's really important to get on top of resentment before it grows into anger, as we talked about before. So that's my question to you today. Do you think resentment truly is present in your relationship? And if so, are you dealing with it in a negative, destructive way, or are you dealing with it in a constructive way? Please share in the comments below. I would love to hear from you, and we can always learn from each other. What do you do then if you've been dealing with resentment in a negative way, in a destructive way? What are you supposed to do? Well, the first step I touched on briefly before. The first tool, the first thing I want you to do is I want you to pause and reflect on your situation. So think about the issue you've been having. Think about whether you've discussed it with your partner or not. How have you been responding and reacting? And if you haven't discussed it with your partner, you got to remember they are not a mind reader. So they may have no clue that you're feeling hurt and miserable. So that would be the first thing to do, is pause, really think about it. Think about, why are you feeling hurt? Why are you feeling unfairly treated? What need of yours is being unfulfilled? Like, what's missing? Like, something's obviously not sitting right with you. What is it? So you really want to get clear on that before you start trying to communicate with your partner. Because if you just launch into it and you don't really know what the issue is, you're just going to be going around in circles, right? So that's tool number one, is pause, reflect, and then communicate. So the second tool that I have for you is to, I call it, put on your diamond shield. So you're going to put on your diamond shield. And I kind of liken that to, my mind goes to Wonder Woman with her cuffs, pew, 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 deflecting anything that comes her way. So I want you to envision putting on a diamond shield. Diamond's very tough, and it can deflect slings and arrows and comments and things that may be coming your way. Because let's say you have talked to your partner and things haven't improved. And in fact, when you try to bring things up with your partner, he or she reacts badly. And maybe they yell, maybe they withdraw themselves, maybe they give you the silent treatment. Maybe they start saying hurtful things. So if that's the case, you need your diamond shield, right? And your diamond shield is there, and you tell yourself, I'm not taking any of this personally. Because I know that's easy to say, hard to do, but it's really not about you. It's about them. Like, what's going on with them that they would be reacting in such a way, in such a destructive way, with hurtful comments or silent treatment or sarcasm or passive aggressive behavior. That's their issue, right? So what's going on with them? Your job is to focus on you. So you put your diamond shield on, you don't take it personally. And part of that, I have a practice that may be helpful to you, because I know that is hard to do when you're in the heat of the moment. But the practice is to consider your partner as a soul, because really underneath our electric meat suits, which is kind of a gross term, but it's true, underneath our electric meat suits, we are all souls. And if it's hard to picture a soul, right? What is it, a wispy ghost or something? But maybe what you want to do is picture a candle flame, like a flickering, gentle candle flame. So you picture your partner as a candle flame, and you yourself are a candle flame. And I've always really loved that Hindu tradition of namaste. And if you may recall with namaste, they put their hands together in a prayer position and they bow. And basically the bowing is saying, the divine in me is greeting the divine in you. So I know it's hard. It sounds like a tall order when you're in the heat of it, but try to picture your partner as a candle flame and you're bowing to their divine flame and they're doing the same to you, even if it doesn't feel like they're doing the same to you. But that will help you in that moment. Okay, so let's say you've done tool number 1. You've paused, you've reflected, you've communicated, and things aren't getting better. So you've done tool number 2, which is you've donned your diamond shield of protection and you are trying to view your partner from the perspective of the soul that he is, the friend that he is, not just your romantic partner, but a person, a friend, a soul, and you're still feeling bad. And so you maybe go off and sit in your room or sit on the couch and you're thinking that train of thought. You're telling yourself the story that it's your fault. So it's my fault that my partner's angry, or I've done something wrong. You're feeling really anxious about it, and you're just not able to sort of uplift yourself. So this is when you have to kind of turn the spotlight on you, and you would be well served by self-soothing. So what do I mean by self-soothing? I mean doing things that are going to make you feel better. So instead of thinking, oh, like the Taylor Swift song, hi, it's me, I'm the problem, it's me. You're not the problem. As we talked about before, whatever your partner's doing, that's their issue. And so you need to focus on what makes you feel good and what makes you feel better. So that might be if you're feeling anxious about the situation, taking a lot of deep breaths, trying to relax. It could be going for a walk, spending time in nature. It could be petting your dog or having your cat sit on your lap. It could be putting on a funny TV show, something to uplift you and get you out of, you telling yourself the story that you're the problem. And please remember, and I often see people forget this, that it's not your job to make your partner happy, and it's not your partner's job to make you happy. Each of you are equally responsible for your own happiness. All right, so let's move on to tool number 3. Tool number 3 is you want to always choose how you are going to react, because you always have a choice in the matter, right? So instead of just reacting blindly, you want to pause and respond appropriately in a healthy, constructive fashion. And by doing so, you are going to create the all-important emotional safety. And that's what every healthy relationship has, is emotional safety. So let's just back up a bit, maybe talk about it from the perspective of you're having some challenges with your partner. So you've done step 1, you've paused, you've reflected, you've communicated to your partner, why you feel unjustly or unfairly treated, why you're feeling resentful. And step 2, you've put on your diamond shield and you're working hard not to take things personally. And you are working hard at seeing your partner as the beautiful soul that they are, as a friend, and as your 2 candle flames together. Now, you still find that things are really prickly with your partner. So maybe your partner has withdrawn. Maybe they are listing off all the bad things that you've done in the last 5 years, in their mind, what they think is bad. All the things that they haven't appreciated that you've done or haven't done. And they're listing that all off, and you're trying not to take it personally. And so what's happening here is that your partner's becoming defensive and maybe withdrawing or being passive aggressive. They're on the defensive, right? So it comes back to our basic biology of when we feel like we're under attack in some way. So it could be you talking about why you feel like your partner has hurt you or is not meeting your needs, and your partner's interpreting that as some form of attack. So even if you're saying it gently, they're still interpreting it as an attack. So they can either fight or they can flee. So you may see your partner doing both or doing one more than the other. So there's big resistance there. There's a big mountain of resistance there. And that means you have to proceed carefully, because you're not going to be able to get to that stage of emotional safety in a healthy relationship if that big mountain of resistance remains in place. So what you need to do is work at softening that resistance and dissolving it eventually. And what that takes is a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion towards your partner. So you can ask them, I see you're very upset by the feedback that I gave you, and you're feeling really uncomfortable about it. Can you tell me a bit more? Like, I really want to understand. And so you kind of follow that line of questioning to try to get to the root of it. And generally the root of it is going to be some kind of trauma or childhood wound. And oftentimes we never really get to the bottom of things. We never really know what caused them to react this way. It just is what it is. But what we're trying to do is better understand their perspective. Because what you may find out is, as you question gently and you ask them to tell you more, you may actually find out that you are responsible for some of the reason why they're behaving, that maybe you hurt them, right? That maybe you behaved in a way that they're feeling slighted and resentful about. And now you're bringing up your hurt, but they have hurt too. So you can, by talking, by dialoguing, you can get a way better understanding of what is happening in your dynamic as a couple. So that takes a lot of empathy. So it may be a situation where your partner shares something with you and you're enlightened and you're like, aha, okay, I see my part in this. I can fix this. That's great. You're moving along. But let's say your partner is not taking responsible for their end of things and wanting to blame you or deflect or put things back on you. And they're not really understanding that premise that your partner's responsible for their own happiness. You aren't, and vice versa, right? So let's say if your partner is not taking responsibility, then, again, you just have to remember this is a defensive. There's a wound there. There's an emotional wound, and they're getting defensive. It's not personal, right? But let's say your partner brings up something that's very hard for them to talk about, and they bring it up and they share honestly with you, and you don't like what they're saying. You don't like to hear about how they're truly feeling, or something that they're telling you that makes you feel really bad and uncomfortable. And so let's say you react sort of in a destructive way, that you start yelling and crying, or you rush out of the room and slam the door. Well, your partner just learned that, if I bring up anything about how I'm honestly feeling, she can't handle it. They can't handle it. And so what will I learn from that? I'm not going to talk about anything. I'm just going to shut down and pretend there's no problem. And things never get better. Because again, going back to what is resentment, it's like a cancer. If you're holding resentment in, it can grow and grow and grow until the relationship is so sick, it cannot recover. So you have to really strive to listen to what your partner has to say, and vice versa, and not take anything as an attack. Putting your scientist hat on, you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're digging deep to get to what is at the root of the thing. It's not about the laundry not being done. It's not about the dishes left in the sink. There's something else at the root of it, an unmet need that's being met, maybe on your side or on your partner's side. And you want to work hard to create that emotional safety. So that is number 3. Tool number 3, choose how you want to react, because you have free will and you have a choice in every situation. Do you react badly or do you react positively? And create that emotional safety in your relationship. Okay, so I've shared the 3 tools with you on dealing with resentment in your relationship, but I also mentioned at the beginning of the video 2 pitfalls you want to be on the lookout for. And so the first pitfall is victim mentality. So you want to do a real thorough check with both yourself and your partner to make sure that one of you or both of you that you're not subscribing to a victim mentality. And what is a victim mentality, you may ask? Well, that is when you feel like everything's hopeless, you don't have any power in the situation, there's nothing you can do, you can't control anything, and so you're just giving up, kind of giving up on life, giving up on the relationship, and your whole outlook on the future is negative. So if one or both of you are sort of subscribing to this victim mentality, then that is a warning sign, just like resentment is a warning sign, that you need to do some work to address that mindset, because that is not a productive mindset and it's not going to get you where you truly want to go. The second pitfall to always be on the lookout for is to reflect on your boundaries or lack thereof. So what kind of boundaries do you have in place in your life? Boundaries specifically related to your relationship, to your partner, to what you are wanting from them. And boundaries are often really tightly linked with your value system. So deep down we've got our values, and some things we can, if it's more surface stuff, we can negotiate on, we can come to compromise. But then there's other things that are really deeply entrenched in our value system, and we can't really compromise on those. So take a look at your boundaries, or maybe they're flimsy, maybe they need some shoring up, maybe you're really not sure what to do or what I'm even talking about. And if that's the case, then like the victim mindset, you want to get more support. You need more support to sort of work on clarifying that. And because boundaries, healthy boundaries, is always going to equal a healthy relationship. Boundaries that are too flimsy and porous or absent are generally going to equate to not a healthy relationship, an unhealthy relationship. So there you go. You've got your 3 tools. You've got your 2 pitfalls to look out for. You know what resentment is. You know how it shows up in a relationship. I hope you got good value from this video today. If you did, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, comment, and you'll be first in line when my next video on relationship mastery drops. See ya.